Jackson. I'm from southwest Oklahoma, a little town of Mountain View. I'm a no-till farmer. I farm several different crops. Third generation farmer. My grandpa started the farm in the late 50s, and my dad and him continued on, and then later on my dad and I were farming together. So when I get to talk, I like to talk about the keys to what you need to do. And the number one thing is you need to know your environment. So last night while I was up here at the school getting ready to go to bed, I looked at you guys' rainfall up, and Google says 41.7 inches. Does that sound about right? Give or take. Well, I'm from an environment that's a little bit different than that. But these three keys are what you need to know. Apply principles, not practices. The soil health principles that Jimmy talked about, very important. Apply those. And use a systems approach. Rotations. You know what will go good in front of one crop and good behind another one. I understand it's corn, soybean country. There are other things you can do. Maybe look around, see what else could be out there. And not one size fits all. We're not all made the same. We're not all grazers. We're not all wheat farmers. We're not all corn farmers. So right about there is where I'm from. You can see I'm about 100 miles southwest of Oklahoma City. If you went to Weatherford, Oklahoma, right there on I-40, I'm about 30 miles south. This is our 30-year annual normal precipitation in the area that I'm from. And if you Google Mountain View, Oklahoma, it's going to say something like 31.5 inches. That's probably a little high. 26, 27, 28 is probably a little more normal. But that's what we get. And here is an important slide for you to know about where I'm from. 31 inches of rain doesn't sound like that much different from where you're at. But the Class A pan evaporation rate in my country is 60 to 70 inches of water from May. They measure that from May to October. So if we put 60 to 70 inches of rain in a pan, and they do have a device that they measure this with, out in my heat, wind, in my environment, I can shed off 60 to 70 inches of water a year. Very important for me to take care of my water. Do you guys, does it ever get dry here? I'd say it does. We're really all just living on that last 3 inches of rain. I mean, we can store water, and one of my goals has been to try to store another 6, 7, 10 inch of rain. I took this the other day off the mezzanette at home, January 20th. I'm in that little area there that says 19 days without a quarter of an inch of rain. That is only on the map. It looks good. I'm more like the guys over here where it's 86 days without a quarter of an inch of rain. There's our current drought map, and we did get a couple inches of snow since we've been gone. Hopefully this will change, but we are in a drought, and that extreme area is encroaching on me pretty quick. And the drought map for the United States, don't look at it. It's coming. Hopefully we'll get things going the right direction, but if you don't want to be scared, don't look at it. We can get dry, but we can also get a lot of rain. This is at Mangum, Oklahoma in 2016. Right there after midnight, from midnight till noon the next day, we got 6 inches of rain. That's not uncommon. I had a custom harvester tell me one time that the worst week of his life he ever spent was in Frederick, Oklahoma. He said it came a half a year's rainfall from supper time till the next morning. We're used to that. A lot of other places in the country are getting those rains more like that, but that's just kind of normal in Oklahoma. This would be a typical livestock operation. I'm sure you guys don't see this around here. Nobody puts their cattle up in a pen and feeds them a round bale of hay around a round bale feeder. That's probably just limited to Oklahoma. And for those grazers out there, we can overgraze our grass. Just because you don't keep your soil covered in a cropping system doesn't mean that you have to forget about it in a grassland situation. And these guys talk about rotational grazing and moving those fences. If you do it like this, you don't have to move the fence. The cattle can stay there. That's a pretty bad sight when a Bermuda grass pasture is blowing. The wind's blowing the dirt off the top of the soil, just like Jimmy talked. There's absolutely no reason for that. A lot of cattle on wheat where I'm from. That used to be that was our main source of income. Wheat's cheap. We would fertilize the heck out of it, plant it early, get it up and going, run stockers on the wheat. A lot of them come from you guys part of the country. Run them on the wheat, sell the cattle, cut a little short grain crop. You saw this slide earlier. That's about 4 or 5 miles north of where my mom lives. And this is pretty typical of what we did when we were running those stockers on the wheat. And right there is where Neil Armstrong wished Mr. Dvorsky luck. I really think he also said, holy crap, this looks like Southwest Oklahoma. So when you got your ground plowed up like that at home, and you get one of those rainfall events like I was talking about there where it rains 6 or 12 inches, 6 inches overnight, that's just what we get. And when you work your ground down flat like that, the next morning when you're going to town for coffee and donuts, that's what it looks like. This is a state highway right here. I've seen that ditch. This is the same field as the Manhattan Hydros tracks in, by the way. I've seen them clean this highway ditch out here no less than 5 times in my lifetime. And they're still doing it. And really, that guy's a pretty good farmer. I mean, he's not wasteful. He's the norm. It's just average. That's what those numbers that Jimmy talked about in that history, right there they are. So before 2006, I kind of told you we plowed and ran the stocker cattle on the wheat. We had 1,800 acres of wheat, and our rotation was wheat. And then sometimes we planted wheat, and then like the third year we planted wheat. And we did that for about 50 years. And there was no rotation. We actually thought a rotation was if we planted a different variety of wheat. That might help. And I had 600 acres of native range. We ran about, back in the day, we ran about 800 to 1,000 stockers. I didn't have any cows. I had 3 tractors, big tractors, 5 tillage tools, a planter, a drill, and a combine. And at that time, it was me and my dad. We had a hired hand, and my wife used to teach school, and she helped us when she could. So that was 2006. We ran the stockers on the wheat. That was our primary source of income, and it was good income. It worked well for us. There's another picture of that clean tilled ground. That's still what we were doing at this time. We were still plowing. We hadn't really changed anything yet. So from 06 to 012, my dad, I lost my dad in 2019, but it was easy for me to switch to no-till because Dad was a proponent. He'd been to South Dakota. He was a custom harvester as well. He'd been to South Dakota, and he saw the changes they made out there on 15, 16 inches of rain. They started raising crops. When we were there, it was wheat, summer fallow, wheat, summer fallow, wheat, summer fallow. And they started bringing in and introducing more crops. And he said, son, I'm not so sure we couldn't do some of that here, but we're going to have to go to no-till. So we still didn't have any cows, still had the 3 tractors, 5 tillage tools, all that stuff, same help. About 2013, after we went to no-till, we started in '06, we've been in it 6 years. We had grassy weed problems when we were tilling, but we buried that seed. We could kind of control it, we could kind of live with it, but once we went no-till, it really became a problem for us. So, you know, we're gonna have to do something. Our wheat pasture's not very good and our wheat yields are going down. So, didn't really want to raise a summer crop because at that time we truly believed that we didn't get enough rain and it was too hot. We just couldn't do it. So we went to, you know, back at this time they were really pushing winter canola. And so we thought, well, we plant it in the fall like we do wheat and we harvest it in the spring, we can do that. And it helped. It's a tough crop to raise. I'm glad I don't raise it anymore, but it did kind of serve its purpose for us. And it was really at that point that I figured out I'm going to have to do something for sure. It was an aha moment for rotations. And I bet you money, you corn soybean guys have something that pokes you in the gut every year that you can't get rid of, you can't kill, you need something else out there. I kind of had that moment. 2013 to 2015, planted more crops, wheat, soybeans, corn, cowpeas. I can plant soybeans double crop. Told I couldn't do it, I can do it. I can plant corn double crop. Planted about July 15th, harvested in December. It's worked pretty well for us. So now we got 1,500 acres of wheat, 400 stockers. We're starting to build a cow herd. I bought a stripper header, Shelburne stripper header for you non-wheat farmers. You know, it strips the grain off and leaves the straw standing tall. We bought that, and it really helped me break into double cropping and plant summer crops. It just let that residue stand in where I could get going and get it planted and get it up and going. And I started noticing earthworms, and I'm glad that Keith said that earlier. It is kind of your visible picture of that you're starting to do something correctly. They're showing up, they're ready to eat. It means, basically what it means is that they're showing up, you've finally given them something to eat. And there was not an earthworm one in that plowed ground, and I honestly thought, y'all, I did not have any idea that earthworms were everywhere. I thought they were under the cow pile up against the fence in the corral where we lotted the cattle. I didn't know they were supposed to be everywhere. So this is an important part of my story. I like to tell this when I'm at a meeting like this because meetings like this are important. You can have a life-changing or at least farm change experience where you finally figure out what it is you need to do. And it's you guys that are here, it's job to help next time they have this. It's the first annual. Fill these seats up. Get the young guys in here and get more people. So in 2016, told you I planted the double crops. I was kind of experimenting with the soybeans and the corn and doing things that you don't do in Southwest Oklahoma. And I wanted to do them better. I thought, and I had wanted to go to no-till on the plains for the last couple of winters, and I just, man, it's hard to go to meetings. We're not meeting guys. We don't love this, really. We don't like getting on our pickup and going and doing something different. It's not always fun, but I finally talked myself into it, and it costs money to go, and it costs money to be away from home. So I went to no-till on the plains, and I'm going to tell you right now, I was looking for seeding rates, seed varieties, fertilizer, bugs in a jug. I wanted to know where I could spend money to make my crop better. When I left home, that's why I left home. And I can admit that now, that we're years into this. So you go to a conference like No Till on the Plains, it's multi-day, and you hadn't sat in a classroom since college. You know, you get your little booklet and you schedule out where you want to go and who you want to hear and what might mean the most to you. And by the end of the third day, you know, well, I'm just getting tired. I'm reading down the list. And the year that I went happened to be a bunch of rock stars of No Till were there. Dwayne Beck, Gabe Brown, Ray Archuleta, all the guys you've heard of. Well, I hadn't, at that time, I didn't know he was a rock star, but he is. And I saw Jimmy Emmonsley, Oklahoma. Well, he's only about 90 miles from me. And I can't remember exactly what the name of his talk was, but it was something like how to save water growing cover crops in a dry environment. And I kind of giggled. I was like, yeah, he can't do that there, because that's what we say, you know. So I went in and I listened to Jimmy, and it was quite interesting. I came home, I forgot about the seeding rates, I forgot about the bugs in the jug, the fertilizer, the in-row treatment that I could do, and I thought, you know, my biggest problem is getting that water in the ground. Water's my limiting factor, not the newest variety, not the bugs in a jug, not the next thing. It's getting the water in the ground. If I can get the water in the ground, I can control the rest of that stuff that's needed. So this is what I saw. These are Jimmy's slides, the next four are. And they were very powerful to me, and I hope they will be to you. This is Jimmy's field. I think this was the year before was a short wheat crop. We were in the middle of a drought. 2011, you guys remember 2011 and 2012? We had just come off of that. It didn't get wet quick in Oklahoma after that. It stayed dry for a while. So this is the summer of 2015. Jimmy decided to plant this cover crop here behind his wheat and do an experiment. So if you can see that little purple flag, right? I'm not going to touch that because I don't know where it's at, but that little purple flag, and then back there where the lady standing where the John Deere sign's at, those are soil temperature and moisture sensors. So let me back up just a minute. When Jimmy planted this, he planted right through that square and realized he had messed up, that he needed to leave a check. So he sprayed that with the Roundup, cleaned the residue off, so he could have a check of bare soil that would mimic that plowed ground like I was showing. Anyway, soil and moisture temperature's there, and still dry, still in that growing season in that dry, arid country there. He's getting that cover crop to grow. There's the temperature reading. Under the cover crop, bare soil. Soil biology dies at what, 90 degrees? Those bugs that Keith was talking about, you get them 122.6 degrees, they're not out there, they're dead. Well, that was just 1 year, you know, that can't always fix things. It's just never great information, but this was the next year. 2016, planted wheat through there. They pull up to do their checks. What can you see in that? This is the next year. You can see that square where they did their test. Well, what I've been told all my life was that if you keep it like that square, that's where you make the most money. That's where you're gonna make a good crop. The more you plow, the better it gets. But that square proves that that's not necessarily true. This is where the rubber met the road for me. Out there in that bare square, 16 inches deep in a 2-inch core sample, that water went in the ground 16 inches. Now I'm going to tell you right now, I bet that was so dry below that you cannot believe it. Under the cover crop, I think this is like a 2.6 inch rain. underneath the cover crop. That same moisture went 33 inches deep. Now, we're farther north and we're farther east than southwest Oklahoma, and I know there's some deep thinkers in here. No, it didn't rain less in that square. It rained the same. That's a pretty powerful slide for a guy from southwest Oklahoma that needs to store every bit of water he can. It's an important slide for you too. I guarantee you, you're going to be needing a 7/10 rain one of these days. You can do the same thing here that we can do in Oklahoma. So, where the cover was at and where the cover wasn't. That cover, that bare spot, that rainfall at that depth was about the same as him getting 4.6 inches of moisture for the next crop. Under the cover crop, 7.52. It doesn't get any clearer than that. I've got to have at least 7/10 to 1.5 inches of that water that he saved to raise my crop. This is another picture from 2018. So see that slide I showed you first? It's not uncommon. We think we get dry and everybody says, man, I've never seen it this dry, but this is out of the norm for us. In 2018, we went 114 days without a quarter-inch rain. And as well as that water went into the ground, we can see rain fall and we can measure it once it's in the ground, but it's trying to leave all the time. This was after that rain at the end of that 114 days. We got 3/4 of an inch of rain, and this is a clean tilled field across from my mother's house. That field back there where that water is going back to Jesus is laid out for cotton. Be much like one of your clean tilled fields waiting for it to go back to corn. This is also a conventionally tilled field where that wheat's growing. But that water went in the ground, and that residue or that growing crop on there is keeping it from escaping. You can't always see water leaving, but we did that morning. Right to the line. Right down the line. It's 2016 to present. We're growing more crops. We're still trying to play with that double crop corn. We raise cotton. We raise cover crop grazing mixes to rest our grass. We'll plant a grazing mix on some of our lesser soil. Take our cows off of that during the growing season, let our grass rest, so we have something to let our grass catch up and get better, and then we have something to put them on in the winter. We don't run any stockers anymore. We do keep some heifers. We're up to about 200 cows now. My organic matter is coming up. Biology is increasing, and we're trying to keep as much cover as we can. So 2022, this is where we're at. We're just got a little more ground, I got a little more grass, 0 stalkers, the cows. Now, if you look at that slide, what's missing? Now I'm down to 2 tractors. A planter, an air seeder, a sprayer, and a combine, same labor. What's missing? Machinery, tillage tools. If you want to be a successful no-tiller and you really get your desire to make it work, you need to get rid of them tillage tools. Don't tempt yourself. It's just like this dry race board back here, and it's a degradation to do it, but you can clear your mind and you can think, oh, the weeds are gone, the vertical till took them out, but best thing I ever did. It's not an option at my place. Plowing is not an option. I don't have anything to do with it. If I actually let go of some ground that overflows, in a river bottom because it overflowed and it put a bunch of silt down on it. And I'm not gonna buy no village tool or anything like that to get that back into shape. So I've just taken myself out of that. The soil health principles that Jimmy and Keith both talked about, they're important. This is a cut on one of our farms. There was an old county road went down through there, and it makes for a really good soil pit. You can see that dark soil, and there's some more of that red stuff like Jimmy has down underneath it. Armoring the soil is key for me. I have to have residue. I can't get enough residue. I've got to have something to block that wind, get that 122.6 degree temperature. That's what it's going to be. I can't have that. So I have to armor the soil. We do no disturbance except with a disc on a planter or a weed drill. And we have increased our plant diversity. It's one of the principles. We do integrate livestock. That was easy for us. We already had the livestock. I can understand where it'd be a challenge if you didn't. And optimize roots. Get as many in the ground all the time as you can. This slide doesn't mean a whole lot. I just wanted to show you where my organic matters are at. And don't get too caught up in that. If you start down this path of regenerative, trying to get your soil better, it is an important number, but it's going to be a slow number to move. You will be able to tell when you're doing the right things. You'll know. That'll fix. It'll take time to get that there. Just keep going. But those numbers, my organic matters, that Adkins place was 0.4 when I started. I bet you guys don't have that low organic matter. 3.4 is pretty good for me. We've made a lot of progress there. These are just some pictures of some things I've done behind my weed stubble. This is some remix, which is the floor sweepings at the cover crop facility. They just sweep the floor or mistakes they make, they put it in a bag. I got a bunch of that. It was cheap one year. I thought I'll give that a try. It won't cost me much, but this is in behind some weed. That's later. That other picture was right probably 2 weeks after planting. This is later in the summer, the same mix. I've actually sowed rye in that right there where that pass is. I did graze some of that. So there's what our combine and our stripper header looks like. 16 through 21. We still do a few double crop beans. That's my son. He was about 6 or 7 at the time. He really liked getting out there and doing that. He's 16 now. I have to pry him away from basketball or whatever else we did when we were that age to get him to come out and help me out. But my family's great help. But that's the way we plant into our wheat. I use no row cleaners. My planter is pretty plain. I need it there. I can't afford to move it. That's just like leaving the door of your freezer open for me. I want that covered up. There's some of the beans a little later on in the summer. You know, I'm raised, you guys get the big yields, but double crop situation in southwest Oklahoma, I'm raised 20 to 40 bushel beans, double crop. They're just as good double crop as they are primary. And by the way, you can take a 0 off of what I pay for planting compared to you guys. So it's all relative when you put it in perspective about our yields. It's all basically about the same. This is some cotton. I planted disc of wheat. I planted corn and stripper stubble. You can see a little bit of volunteer rye out there, or corn out there. And that particular year, that thing made 3 bales the acre cotton. Just another picture of it later in the growing season. Pretty good cotton crop that year. We usually can make about 2 bales. This Milo on the right, another field of cotton here on the left. These pictures aren't typical from where I came from. From a clean till grazer's farm to growing crops that look like that, that's a big swing. We've done this. This might work for you guys in your country, you guys that's got cows. I'm sure you have some lesser ground somewhere that needs to lay out, needs a rotation. Maybe you can't think of a rotation that'll fit in there in a cropping situation. But if you got cows, I planted this mix right here on this side, 23 bucks an acre for 29 pounds. Your planting date will be different than mine. I planted that August 24th. This picture was taken September 18th. And we planted it strictly as a stockpile mix. We were going to take it to freeze. You can grow, anybody can grow a lot of forage if you kind of figure out that timing of planting, catch a rain. In the fall, these summer grasses and things will just explode in the fall. Here's a little bit later. This is in October. Jim Johnson from the Noble Research Institute came out. The day before the frosted there in late October, he came out and clipped this with me. We walked this whole field. He took it back, he measured how much dry matter would be there, or how much forage would be there. It froze, and guys, I'm gonna tell you right now, this is the best smelling feed you ever smelled in your life. You can't imagine after a frost how good that smells. Stayed off of it a couple of weeks, and there's triticale, and there's some radish, and turnip, and grazing collards down in that. So there's green down in there as well. But 6,166 pounds is what we come up with. And I did that so I could do this. I'm always looking for a place for those cows. They gotta be somewhere, and in order for me to make that grass, she's standing up. In order for me to make my grass better, I've gotta get them off of that grass. Most of us where I'm at, I'm sure y'all have heard of the Columbus method of grazing. You turn them out in the spring and you go rediscover them in the fall. That's pretty much what we do where I'm from, and the grass gets no rest. So it's important for me to rest our grass. There's just some more pictures of it. Another crop that we have an opportunity to raise is sesame. That's what that is on the right. I'm just going to go over some of my yields with you, and I want to show you where I came from, what I had, and where I'm at, and what the soil health program and regenerative, trying to regenerate my soils has actually done for me on the bottom line. Our county average in weeks, 29 bushels the acre. My farm, this farm, actually that year made 46 bushel, and that's about what my farm yield is. My APH is about 46. So I'm quite a bit better than the county average. I planted that was my first attempt at double crop corn. I planted it July 15th, and I know your question for me will be what day length was that? It was 115 day. I get so much heat that I can just, that stuff's, I envy y'all so much that you get to farm corn. It's so much fun for me to get to watch. It's an awesome plant. I made 50 bushel double crop corn, 46 bushel wheat. I think I paid $35 an acre rent for that farm. I've made 26 bushel soybean on that farm, and that particular sesame crop made 1,033 pounds. The county average is 412. We're making progress. Tabor Place, 52 bushel wheat, 60 bushel double crop corn. Planted July 15th, the county average on corn's 44. I've since got that corn up when I'm doing it now. The harder you push these rotations and the harder you push your soil, the better the yield you get. I'm up to about 76 bushel this year. 970 pounds of cotton, that's pretty good cotton yield for us. I've done this before too. If you're a stalker operator, this is a similar mix to the one I planted, only it was in the summer. I didn't take a determination. I didn't put anything out there after frost. These were running on it during the growing season. I put 172 calves on there. That's 263 calf days an acre. You can see the math right there. This number down at the bottom is the one that I like. It cost me 19 cents to feed those things. It's about 68 bucks an acre is what that place made me over the summer. It's in a gap. I did not intend for that to be my only crop that year, cash crop. It's a gap. I filled the gap at that 68 bucks. Plus my grass recipe. Here's a look at the one. This is the one I planted that summer. On the left is that crop growing. I left some ungrazed and just let it mature. That's what it looked like. That's what it looked like after I run the cows over it and moved the fence. I moved them across that and let them graze it down. This is my highest organic matter farm that I have. And it went up significantly after I started doing this. There's kind of what my soil looks like, some more of my yields, just to let you know kind of where we've gone. We're bettering ourselves. That's some of my soil, and the best I can remember when I took that picture, you know, the color of that soil is worth a lot to me in that picture because that soil is dry. If I threw that at you, I'd knock you cold in the wedge. That was a hard piece of soil right there. That was in that 114 day period. So we get to rocking along in 2017. This place has been in cover crops for 1 year right now. That's where my mom lives. That's where our operation is. My neighbor across the road is still in maximum tillage. We got a 2-inch downpour. I pulled in the drive, mom's drive, and I thought, that's a pretty good picture. I'll take a picture of that. I'll send it to Jimmy and see what he says. And just for your information, from about that water, when it overflows, when his wife wanted that ditch there because she was afraid that water was going to get in her house. So they had the county come in and cut this ditch and put a great big old pipe in going into that driveway where it goes over the hill. It's not supposed to drain that way. Well, you can imagine what it's doing to that hill on the other side. So that's why the ditch is there. That ditch wasn't always there. But when that gets backed up, it runs across the road. That's why there's a little bit of water standing there. But when we get tillage on this, from those trees in Mom's yard there on the left to her front door, that whole thing right there, it's a black clay soil. When it cracks open, you can lose your pliers in it. But it would hold water, and you could see water standing in front of her house. Mine would do the same thing when I was in tillage. So that's a one-time event. That don't happen very often. This is just looking the other way. That's my field looking the other way. And that, like I said, that don't ever happen again. It's a year later. Another 2-inch downpour. Now this is 2 years cover crop. It's been in cover crop 2 years right here that we've grazed. Pack that ground down with them cows. Won't take any water. I didn't find that to be true. Well, that's just twice that happened. Surely it won't happen again. Notice the date. 5 days later, it did it again. The water keeps getting bigger every time. Jimmy came not shortly after this They had just run urea on that and hadn't got it worked in the last time they did it. You don't have to make the mistakes yourself. You got people in place and these folks that are putting these meetings on like this that you can come learn. There's tons of stuff on YouTube and the internet that you can go look at. You young guys are YouTube fanatics. Peyton didn't get that combine stuck, his mother did. I did it, she didn't do it. Learn from others. Help each other. What worked for Ben over there surely worked for you down here in this little confined area you guys are in. If you don't make any mistakes, you're not trying hard enough. If you're gonna make some mistakes when you get out of that comfort zone, when you decide to try something new, something's not gonna work. It's just part of it. And don't get discouraged with your first year on one of these multi-species cover crops. It's going to be about half a failure the first time you plant it. Until your soil biology gets going and gets active, some of that stuff's just not going to take off and grow very well. So don't get discouraged. Future improvements, we've already been moving some fence. We need to do more of it. I need to get to moving the fence on my native range so I can get it improved. More ground cover. Like I said, I gotta have more ground cover going forward. More odd planting dates. You know, I've got to figure out when I can plant like that corn the 15th of July or planting that grazing mix the 24th of August. That's not normal. And we're not going to learn that until we get out and do it. Anyways, thank you guys for your time. I hope I didn't bore you too bad. It's just a little bit of what we do down where I'm from.